Over the last week, a lot has been made about Evergrande. The company went from something that hardly anyone outside of China had ever even heard of to being one of the hottest financial news topics in the world, as it looked like the company was about to default on their debt, and without some kind of support from the CCP, bankruptcy was inevitable. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen or heard anything about what's been going on, it's really quite simple. Evergrande is the second biggest real estate developer in China, and in 2018, it was the most valuable real estate company in the world. Since then, however, they've been struggling to pay their debts. Their business model was based on outgrowing their debt obligations by taking out new debts and funding more real estate developments, which sounds risky as it is. Then, the Chinese government introduced the 3 red lines policy, which meant that they could no longer take out any new debt, so their growth stalled. Since then, defaulting on their debt payments has been inevitable. There's just no way around it. They don't have the cash to pay their debts, they can't sell shares because they have collapsed in price, and they can't release new bonds either due to the 3 red lines rule. In short, they are a ticking time bomb. Last week, the market started to panic as some interest payments were getting close to being due, and it was obvious that they weren't going to be paid. The potential for a collapse of the company and even the entire industry in China was very real. But yesterday, it emerged that Evergrande will be paying the bonds issued in the Chinese currency, and according to Bloomberg, CNBC, and the rest of the mainstream media, that means the problems are all solved. But I'm afraid that just isn't the case. Today, I'm going to explain what the CCP has done to supposedly fix the problem and why it isn't actually a solution for China at all. But first, really quickly, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're putting out loads of content just like this constantly that you don't want to miss out on. So over the last week, a lot of people were starting to think that the CCP would let Evergrande fail, that they wouldn't want to incentivize dangerous and irresponsible practices by companies, so they would allow Evergrande to collapse to show everyone else that they need to be sensible when it comes to debt. In fact, most of the CCP shills here on YouTube were hoping that Evergrande would be allowed to fail. They wanted it to fail, they wanted it to collapse because they saw it as evil capitalism and greed taking hold in their country, and they thought that the CCP would be more than happy to watch it all fall down. Unfortunately for those people, the economy in China is far more complex than they could ever know, and allowing Evergrande to fail would hurt China far more than actually trying to fix the problem would. And that's probably why, as of yesterday, the CCP has started to act. They injected nearly $19 billion into the banking systems yesterday in an effort to increase liquidity in the markets and to prevent Evergrande from collapsing. It also emerged that an imminent deal with the CCP would see the government take over control of Evergrande in a sort of soft nationalisation. Basically, the government will split Evergrande up into 3 separate entities that will be underpinned by state-owned enterprises. The deal is being designed to save the Chinese citizens at risk at the expense of foreign investors and those who ran the company. Citizens who have already bought apartments that have yet to be delivered will be assured by the CCP that these new state-run entities will complete the projects, meaning that none of them will lose out. It also emerged that Evergrande will be repaying their debts that were taken out in the Chinese currency, but they will not be repaying anything in a foreign currency like the US dollar. Now, this really shouldn't surprise anyone, especially if you watch my channel, because it lines up perfectly with what I've been saying about China this whole time. The CCP do not care about foreigners and investors in China, whether it be via corporate bonds or variable interest entities. It is an awful idea to invest in China because the governing authority isn't on your side. The 3 largest holders of Evergrande's US dollar bonds are HSBC, Royal Bank of Canada, and BlackRock. Western companies that will almost definitely lose everything they invested, as the bonds they hold will be practically worthless if Evergrande refuse to make any payments. Frankly, I can't think of a better advertisement for why you shouldn't put money in China. Regular viewers of the channel might also remember how last week I suggested that the CCP is likely to nationalise Evergrande instead of just paying off their debts, as it is absolutely on brand for them. She has been outspoken in saying that homes are for living in and they shouldn't be investments, but almost all of the homes built by Evergrande are investments. Nationalising Evergrande, the second biggest player in China, is the first step in changing the industry as a whole, and that is what is coming next. If you watched my last video on this topic, then you know that Evergrande isn't the problem, it's just an example of the problem. The entire Chinese construction industry is leveraged to the hilt with frankly ridiculous levels of debt. This chart here shows how much debt interest was paid last year by the world's largest real estate companies. Basically, this is a list of the 35 most leveraged real estate companies in the world, and if you take a look at those names, you might notice something. 30 of the 35 world's most indebted companies are Chinese. This problem is systemic, and it's not going to disappear now that Evergrande has been bailed out. And as Fantasia, China South City Holdings, Yuzhou, Sichuan Lanjiang, Rise Sun, Sunshine City, and Guangzhou RNF begin to collapse, the CCP will start to nationalize them as well. Just like we saw the education industry being nationalized earlier in the year, we are witnessing the start of the nationalization of the construction industry, the largest sector in the Chinese economy. And if you think that doesn't have implications that go far beyond the next week, then there's nothing I can say that will help you. Because here's the truth, China's property market is a bubble. They have ghost cities, entire towers and towns where no one lives, yet the property prices are still sky high. Chinese policy has made it so property is pretty much the only way for the average person to invest. So the average citizen has been buying up as many apartments as possible instead of contributing to their pension like we would. That bubble will exist whether or not Evergrande collapses. It will exist whether or not the CCP nationalizes the entire industry. But China can't allow all these people to lose all their wealth, or there will be serious civil unrest. They also can't allow the bubble to keep expanding, or they risk an even bigger problem than the one they already have. Their only option is to slow the market down, to remove debt from the system, to take control of construction themselves, and to limit demand in order to let the rest of the economy catch up with the exorbitant property prices. Whether or not the CCP will be able to effectively manage this industry itself is purely speculation. But the reality is that governments are inefficient and inferior to the free market 99% of the time. And in my opinion, this time it will be no different. Despite what Bloomberg, the BBC or CNN will tell you, the problem here is not solved. Evergrande may no longer be at risk of collapse, but every other over-leveraged developer in China still is. And soon enough we will be hearing the same story all over again. Foreign investors are about to get shafted, and apparently no media organization in the West seems to care, because according to them, contagion has been stopped. We have no idea the extent of debt in the shadow banking sector, and we have no idea how any of that will be handled by the CCP. We don't even know the full connection between Evergrande and the crypto markets, but it is increasingly looking likely that the Ponzi scheme of Tether, Bitfinex and USDT is in bed with the Ponzi scheme that is the Chinese housing market. This issue may be drifting away from mainstream consciousness, but it is not dead. It will emerge again in 1 month, 3 months, or maybe 6 months. And when it does, I urge you to look back at what the mainstream media said about it today, at how they claimed the whole ordeal was done and dusted, and how they could be so naive. If you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe. If you want to help spread the word, then consider liking the video, and YouTube will do its part by pushing this video out to more people just like you. I really do appreciate all the support you give the channel, even if it's just leaving a like. Down below, there's a link to my favorite brokerage called eToro, where you can trade stocks and shares, crypto, commodities, foreign currencies, and more, all for 0% commission. And there's also a link down below in the description to BlockFi, where you can get up to $250 in free Bitcoin, and you can earn interest on whatever crypto you hold. Whether it's Bitcoin, Ether, or even stablecoins, you can earn as much as 14% interest a year. I've also set up a second channel called Stoic Finance 2, and I've just set up a crypto channel called Stoic Crypto, so make sure to check both of those out as well. Finally, I'm also working on setting up my own website where I'll post videos and articles in the future, and I've got a Patreon in the works as well, which should be out within the week. Thanks for all the support, thanks for watching, until next time.